All right, folks, how you doing? So welcome to Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth, part 4.5. I'll be co-hosting with Ged Skeptic Media. He's not here at the moment. He'll be here in about 15 minutes as of the time of recording. And I'd like to thank him for taking the time to come on and give us his thoughts and his perspective, on this subject, which I think is crucially important to understanding the true history of the world. Hence the name of the channel, True Human History. It's not the catchiest title in the world, for a channel, but it is at the very least upfront. I mean, this is all about, as far as I'm concerned, the hidden history of humanity as pertains to Atlantis and Mars and the Hollow Earth and all these kinds of things. And in fact, Atlantis, I don't think is even mentioned in this episode at all. It's not on the slides anyway. If it does come up, it'll be through conversation. But mostly this is Mars orientated. This is the main focus. I think there's a little bit of the Hollow Earth there. Well, actually, it's more like the Hollow Mars. The whole idea that there's a civilization within the planet of Mars. I've no idea how Jay's going to react to this. So it'll be interesting to find out because he hasn't seen this presentation yet because I've not put it up on my channel and I haven't sent it to him either. So any reactions that he has, any responses, his thoughts are pure off the cuff. They're not how would you say, pre-selected. They're his exact thoughts. So that makes it more real as well. That makes it more authentic. Because originally I was going to do like all the parts of Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth with him, but I don't think he was interested at all in going down that route, particularly because he's seen the first 4 parts already. I'm assuming. I know he's seen, some of them. I don't know whether he's seen all of them, but he's not seen this, so this is more spontaneous. Maybe that's the word I was looking for, spontaneous. But yeah, it should be interesting to see what he thinks, and I'm looking forward to it, and also looking forward to reading your thoughts and comments down below. So I'll be back on when Jed shows up.
Anyway, I'm here now. I've had to
Yep.
fucking download the app and take up more memory on my phone. It's like a constant battle with memory on my phone. Like it's because of all the photographs and video I take and all this stuff. It's like I'm constantly having to like delete stuff, and I'm just sick of it. Now I have to download this app, and it's like more memory, and it's can't I be doing with it, mate?
I know. I need to get a new
Happy
phone as
birthday,
well.
anyway. How old are you?
Nice. Just turned 39.
39.
39, yeah. Just turned
You're
39.
younger than me.
A little
You're
bit.
younger than me. You could
Not
be
that
you could
much
be my
younger.
dad. You could be my
What, you
dad.
mean dressed like this?
You look like my dad.
Do I? Oh, okay.
I could say to somebody, no, you don't really look like my dad, but I'm saying you look probably as old as what my dad would look.
Well, dressed up like this, yeah. I've always been an old soul, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, thanks very much. I went out with my mates in Edinburgh, and I don't even remember how the hell I got home. I do know it was on the last train of the night, otherwise I'd have to wait till 6 in the morning, so I got a little bit lucky.
Aye. Have a few too many then.
Yeah, I was just up the Royal Mile, started in the Canonsgate pub, and then I tried to go in the World's End. One of them didn't want to do it, so I ended up in Deacon Brodie's Tavern. And I remember them chucking us out at the end of the night, switching the lights, so like, go home and all this. So I'm like, all right, we'll leave us. All right. Getting really kind of fed up, like, get the fuck out of here, But yeah, so pretty interesting. Presentation tonight. By the way, there's no Atlantis in this one. It's all Mars, pretty much.
God, I like a wee bit of Atlantis.
Well, there are other ones, but
Atlantis, I think there's probably more truth in the Atlantis story than there is in the whole Mars fucking stuff. I think. Well, I think there's more value in the Atlantis stuff than the Mars.
Yeah, there is. Well, it's closer to home, as it were, figuratively and literally, a lot closer to home than the whole Mars idea. But I've got loads and loads of books about it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to Iona tomorrow. I'm on my way to Iona.
Yeah.
I'm going to see the Abbey. I'm going to see a few other wee things on the way there. In the open, there's there's like a Colosseum. There's a big stone. I don't know if you've seen it before. I think it's called McLeod's Folly or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
it's a big coliseum, like it sits on the hill in Oban. Uh, but I just can't wait, man. I'm going to celebrate my 41st
Yeah.
birthday in Iona.
Absolutely. Oh, there's no better place to do it. I was there years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. I was supposed to get the train up, and this was a couple of weeks after the incident in Manchester. Don't you remember that? There was a terrorist incident in Manchester. And
Mm-hmm.
I was literally sitting on the train waiting to go up to Oban, and then there was an evacuation of the station. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, this is all I need. Turned out it was just a signal fire. It was nothing in the end, but I got the bus home and I just grabbed the car keys and just drove up. Just gave me the keys. I'm just going to drive. I remember driving home. I was driving through Argyle and Butte at like 5 o'clock at night, and I was just thinking, as soon as I get the calendar, it's almost like I'm home because from there you just go on to Stirling and the M9. But I was like fighting against the darkness on the way down the road. I was like, fuck, I don't want to be in the middle of the Highlands when it gets dark. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
was just
Yeah.
driving it, still within a limit, but I was driving as fast as I could to get down to Calendar. I thought, as soon as I get the Calendar, it's like, I'm almost home, thank God. You know, but Iona
Well,
is something special, I'll tell you.
I'll be driving mostly in the day, so that's good because the ferry from Oban over to Mull, because that's where I'm
Yeah.
staying. I've got one of those glamping pod things.
Mm.
I'll be staying in that for a couple of nights in Mull, and then you have to get a wee foot ferry over to Iona from Mull.
Yeah.
So you technically have to get two ferries over to Iona. You know what I mean?
That's true. I remember that. I remember thinking, "Oh, this will be peaceful. This will be great." Just right out in the middle of the Scottish Highlands, and then I got on the ferry from Malta to Iona, and I was just this all these English school kids that were there, like, "All right, mate, all right." Oh, fucking hell, what a headache! But
Maybe it was the wrong time of year. I think at this time of year there'll be like very minimal tourists because they're just
yeah,
fucking. It's going to be cold and going to be pretty cold, but I think that's going to be the true. It's going to feel like the true Scotland. Kind of fucking
yeah,
Scotland isn't sunshine and rainbows, man. It's always,
no,
especially West Coast. It's always gloomy, man. I was in Glasgow at work today, and as soon as you get to Glasgow, you just get this dim, dull greyness, man. It just comes out of nowhere.
yeah. I
It's
know.
always pretty gloomy.
I remember being on the ferry, Iona, just thinking, just fucking get there, just fucking get there, because here are these fucking school kids. Oh, fuck off, man, fucking annoying. Like chased each other about making all this noise. Oh, fucking hell. Reminds me of the time I went through a Dumbarton Castle. Was it Dumbarton? Can't remember. Aye, Dumbarton. I went through on a Sunday thinking I get the whole place to myself. What happened? It was a fucking family day out, full of families, full of kids. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about feeling like a goddamn gooseberry, I'll tell you. Got all the
That's
luck when
why
I
I
started
like
looking for a
the
piece
wee
of quiet.
remote places. I like the abandoned sort of castles, and I like the kind of like
Yeah,
the ruined churches in the middle of a field in Fife or something like that. Because you're looking at all these tourists everywhere. I mean, the more
yeah,
popular something is, the more touristy is kind of is. So when it comes to like Edinburgh Castle and Stirling Castle, they're like even Roslyn Chapel. Roslyn Chapel, it's too touristy now. I mean, you can't
yeah,
fucking walk around and admire the place without some arsehole bumping into you with a camera. And there are not many have cameras, but
no,
they do anyway.
yep,
But and you get the weirdos that think they've got some spiritual healing for the place. Or like they're walking around and you're like, fucking hell, man. And
yeah,
you got the Da Vinci Code people. They're like, I'm solving clues here.
yeah. I've been there before. I remember it. I remember it. But yeah, let's get into the presentation then. And so this is 4.5.
Hmm.
So disclaimer, da 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 da, under section 107, Copyright Act, fair use, etc., and so forth. So this is based on a guy who's rather an eccentric fellow, even by the standards of Brinsley, Lepar, Trench, and David Icke. His name is Lou Baldwin. So this is based on his book Mars and the Lost Planet Man.
He looks a bit like an alien.
He's Italian American. He actually served in I think it was the Marines. I've got a book. It's called The Orphans of Aquarius, and that's all about his experience in Vietnam. And he went out. He said he was in the book. He said he was out in the jungles of Vietnam, searching for and trying to hunt down these supernatural creatures. But I tell you what, though, if you take that part out of it, I don't know if you've ever been to Japan. I have years ago. Went to Okinawa with a friend of mine, and I tell you what, it's very different from the rest of Japan. Very different. I've been there, and I went to the mainland later on, and when you go there, you can feel the tension in the air, even from the Second World War, where you go in the old bunkers that the Japanese occupied and all this. And Lou Baldwin talks about they had the racial segregation back then during the Vietnam War between the black soldiers and the white soldiers, because that was still a big thing back then. And it even talks about what's called the blue on blue incidents, when they didn't like their lieutenants and all this, they would frag them in the middle of the night. Pretty intense stuff, I'll tell you. I think more officers in the US services, or probably as many, died of blue on blues as enemy action. By the way that Blue Baldwin describes it, I'll tell you, a lot of those lieutenants, if you pissed off your soldiers, they could really fuck you up. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. But we'll get into this book here. So going into the prologue. So the universe is a vast playground that is maintained by a collaboration of highly spiritualized beings. Such beings rarely, if ever, manifest onto the playground that they oversee. Universes are and exist inside of endless dimensions, infinite, never-ending, perpetual, and relatively bizarre. The human mind has access to higher and lower dimensions, but is handicapped by the absurdity of illusionary reality. That handicap allows humans to believe they they originated by accident on this one planet, a planet which happens to be in the sweet zone around the star. All planets in a star system are in a habitable zone of some sort. Life is abundant all over the universe in the endless billions of galaxies and the star systems inside of galaxies. Darwin's theory of evolution is a farce. The origins of man, beasts, insects, and vegetation are extraterrestrial. So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. I just think I've had this belief for a while now. Like, I used to think the opposite. I used to think the same, that there must be life out there. And when you think about that question, it's almost like a religion. It's like almost saying there must be God. You've got no evidence at all there's any more life out there than just us. Like, we've never found any other life. We never even came close to it. Kind of the distances and the time that it take for us to even fucking right. So I'm now kind of on the other side now. I'm starting to thinking, well, I'd rather, if I'm not going to see evidence for life outside the planet, I'd rather just believe the opposite, kind of we're the only things here, and we could be the beginning. We could be the beginning of life in the universe, for all we know, in time. We could be the first lot. I don't know, man, but like I used to think that. I used to say that to myself, but it's not logical to say that just because there's life on Earth, there must be life on other planets. Why should there be? Why should there be? Earth might be just unique that way. Can the right certain conditions and the right environments and shit like that. We might be just the start of something.
Could be.
So
I certainly agree with him on one thing, though, that Darwin's theory of evolution is bullshit. I certainly agree with him on that.
It's a
When you look
theory.
into
It's a theory. That's it's a theory of evolution. A theory isn't a proven fact. It's the best what they've got evidence-wise, that things can evolve over time to their environments. That.
Darwin was a strange dude. Was it he married his aunt or something, or he married his cousin?
And you can see evolution. You can see it in real time sometimes. Like even certain animals' fur will change white for the snow in the winter and shit like that. Like even in just a season. I mean, so like things can adapt, things can change to survive. Things will mutate and the rest will die off. Like, and that one that mutated was the one that survived. I believe, and I do believe that things can evolve and adapt to its environment. And because you adapt in an environment, it gets new characteristics because of that environment.
Sure.
But anyway, I'm going on a bit of a rant about fucking evolution. But I'm not like I said, it's just a theory, and it's it's a theory, and like we never know. And like I said, we could be the first. We could be the first life in this whole universe, galaxy, whatever we are.
Well, I certainly will agree
because
that
there's no
unique.
proof, there's no evidence, anything else. That's the logical way to think about it. There's no proof of evidence of any other life from anywhere else. There's no proof of it. There's not one scrap of evidence. So for you to believe that there's life out there, there must be life out there, it's almost like saying you believe in God. There must be a God out there. It's the same religious. You're just, it's faith. You're putting faith into believing there's extraterrestrial life. Yeah, that's just a faith. That's just like a religion. You know what I mean? There's no evidence for it, but you're willing to believe it.
Good point. Sure. I'll certainly take that on board. So next slide.
And that's dogmatic, Ken. To think like that is dogmatic. You know what I mean? You start to get dogmatic.
It's easy to become dogmatic, though. I mean, it really is, because the thing I've found is that we all want to kind of subscribe to a particular system of belief. And I certainly have for years. I locked myself into these things, but I always say that the greatest thing that I have, and also the worst thing that I have, is endless curiosity. I can't stay within a system for very long, and I never have been able to do it, because I'll out-curious everyone else, and they'll start asking questions, and everyone just kind of looks at you blank, like the deer in the headlights, like, what? Because they never considered it, kind of thing. So that I consider to be my greatest blessing and ultimately my greatest curse, is that I never stop asking questions, and I never settle into any system for very long at all. It's as much a bad thing as a good thing.
And like any question or anything you're looking into, it's like it's almost good to know what something isn't than what it is.
Sure.
And if you know what something isn't, and it's like that whole reduction. Can you're using reductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, and
that's right.
Again, that's a good way to come to a certain conclusion. It's not perfect, but and I do a lot of that as well. So anyway, let's go on with this slide, man. I forgot what we were reading.
Listen, do you want to read some of them out, or do you want me to do all of them, or do you want to do some
on you
of them?
go, mate. On you go, mate.
Okay. All right. Okay, so still in the prologue section, nothing originated on planet Earth. No flora, nor fauna, or any of the minerals and elements. Essence and physical existence comes to Earth off the shelf, fully developed and ready to go. So we're almost like a pre-packaged planet, it sounds like. Plant and animal modifications happens with external determination to the living things brought here from somewhere else in the galaxy and are made to adapt to local conditions on the planet. What you're saying about evolution. Humans experience a physical existence, but we are not physical beings. Everything we see, taste, touch, smell, and hear is illusionary sensations created by massless vibrations birthed by mass from the star. What humans perceive as reality is but a mysterious electrical experiment that behaves in a bizarre and humanly inexplicable manner concerning known particle physics, particles that project into three-dimensional reality. So this whole idea that we're actually living in an illusionary reality rather than a real one.
Welcome to life. I mean, that's what, welcome to the reality. I mean, that's what life is. Just electrical signals and impulses and emotions and shit like that. That's all it is, man. I mean, maybe it is a matrix. It is like a matrix. Again, it's the whole matrix idea.
Yeah, I have to be very careful not to get too lost in my own head sometimes. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but sometimes if I'm like sitting on the bus and I start thinking about like the illusionary nature of reality and all this, like David Icke particularly talks about in his books, it's almost like I have to snap myself out of it. Do you ever have that? Like sometimes when you're just thinking too deeply about something and you just get like shudders and it's like you have to kind of wake yourself up for it almost. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Kind of.
You kind of have to.
Sometimes like, I do sort of stop myself and go, like, you're overthinking that. You can overthink stuff as well. And it's not a good thing that. It's not good to overthink, because if you have to overthink something, maybe it's a bit too complex for you to understand.
The best way I could explain it is there was an episode of South Park, I forget which one, where Kyle starts reading all these books about philosophy and he almost like phases out of his own body. And one of the two is either Stan or Cartman says, take the books away from him. I kind of have that kind of moment where it's like, you're thinking too much about this, Blair. Just sit down and shut up and realize that you're actually on the bus.
You've got to draw a line sometimes. You've got to draw a line in the sand and think, fucking, just live for the moment sometimes. We look a lot at the past. Yeah. And the past is important. It is important, but like you've got to live for the present as well. And people can forget about that.
Yeah. Well, if we are in a matrix, so is everybody else. And if it is just a simulation, well, yeah, but you're still in it and you don't know how to get out of it, so you might as well just make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
Exactly.
You know So doesn't matter if it's illusionary or not. We are in it. So renegades. This is where it gets kind of off the rails, as it were, for lack of a better term. Sinister beings infest star systems located in the outer
Is it the
reaches of the
Borg?
Milky Way. Yep, that's the Borg in the Milky Way galaxy. The best thing I could think of in relation to what the text is saying, where Earth
Resistance is
resides.
futile.
Exactly. That's exactly what they say, isn't it? Such beings were cast off and out of the vast stretches of star systems and linger in the dark reaches of space. Some made their way to other star systems and managed to penetrate the fences that most star systems have in place to keep intruders out. Once inside the systems, the most tenacious of renegades often manage to find their way into planetary systems and burrow into and below the surfaces of moons and planets. Some renegade clans go dormant soon after they find hiding places and remain inactive sometimes for centuries. Gods make use of some renegade tribes, using them for their own purposes and providing renegades with limited privileges in exchange for services rendered. So when I was reading that, I'm like, sounds like an interstellar mafia or something like that, you know?
Come on, I was thinking, back once
What's that?
again with the Renegade Master. Evil power to the people. Back once again with the Renegade Master. I don't know, what the fuck was that all about, mate?
Well, fair enough.
It's a nice story. Nice story, mate.
Well, what I'm always thinking is if you're seeing something in TV programs, oh, there you go. The clue always is in the name, right? TV programming. So when you're watching like the Borg, you're like, oh, the Borg are cool and all this. I'm thinking, well, what's the Borg based on? Is it just somebody thought this up? Is somebody's imagination, or is it based on something that's actually out there?
Based on communism.
Well, that as well.
Like the
Yeah.
whole it's for it's like when you look at like the Starship Enterprise or whatever ships they're flying on, it's always like a democracy. There's so many varieties. There is a hierarchy. Don't get me wrong, but there's a democracy on the starship. What they called the
Enterprise, yeah. Or
no, what they called the Starfleet? Is it Starfleet?
Starfleet, yeah.
Fuck no, it's right. But and then you see the Borg, and I think they must represent like the Russians and communism and shit like that, and technology and shit like that. And the Klingons, they sort of represent the ancient ways and the old battles to the death and the fucking. But it's interesting actually. Star Trek and their
Yeah.
it used to be good. It used to be good. It's turned into holy shit now. Like Next Generation, man. I love Next Generation. I've probably seen every episode of Next Generation twice. Voyager was all right, man, but you couldn't beat the Next Generation, man.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart, man, he was fucking good. It was Picard.
I liked DS9. That was the most action orientated one.
And Data,
in terms of the war.
Was good, man.
Yeah. The war with the Dominion, the reptilians, the war with the reptilians, right? Well, that's what the Jem'Hadar are. They're genetically engineered reptilians. Literally, they're like dinosaur people. Interesting that. I just came into my head there. I actually worked with a guy, a colleague of mine, who's a very high-level Freemason, and he knows William Shatner. And I sat down with him and had a cup of coffee, and I said, you know, Star Trek is Jewish propaganda from back to front, right? I said, I never thought of it that way, but I'll ask Bill Shatner the next time I see him. I was like, well, okay. But that's what I think
Roddenberry. It was Gene Roddenberry. He's
yeah.
But at the end of the day, all stories come from some sort of kind. It could be comes from the fucking like even the Superman and that shit, man. There's loads of biblical sort of references with Superman and his story and. But whatever, that part you just read, man, it's like I said, it's like good story, bro. But anyone can make that shit up about what were they called? The Renegades. The Renegades, and you know what I mean? It's like, what proof can is this? Is he putting this as science, or is it is it a story or what? What is this?
It's a little unknown because he actually wrote a novel at the very beginning of it. So whether he's actually, is he just putting a novel on to cover his ass, legally speaking, or is he making all this up, or is this things that he's been told? You have to make up your own mind. I tend to believe that he's actually trying to tell the truth about what's out there, because personally I think this is true, but not everyone will, and not everyone does. but that's fine. I respect other people's opinions. You know, but the whole idea that there are renegades that are out there that raid this. I think if you watch any of these TV shows, I never watched Babylon 5. Imagine this is maybe something to do with it. Or Star Trek, you've got the Borg. Or if you watch Red Dwarf, you've got the renegades in that as well. Any science fiction, you have these factions, but it's consistent. The same themes run throughout them all, below the surface. They had the mutoids, I think they were called, in Red Dwarf. I almost put that in as a slide, as a picture in that slide there, before just settling for the Borg, because I thought, well, more people know the Borg. But I guess we'll move on to the next one. Eons past. The 5 inner planets of the star system, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Man, which was the planet between Jupiter and Mars, no longer there, were populated by physical and non-physical beings that resided at the lower end of the galactic spiritual spectrum. Star systems in the Milky Way have subordinate administrators, gods that rule unbeknownst to humans. Dominant races of beings in this star system are the serpents, Martians, and reptilians. Less dominant races are Earth humans and a smattering of indigenous and non-indigenous creatures that have collected on and inside of planets, moons, and interstellar debris, asteroids, and comets, and creatures that remain out of sight and out of mind. Any thoughts on that?
No.
No. Straight up, nope. So apparently there are beings.
I'm just getting into it, man. I'm just getting into it.
Beings within and on all the asteroids and the comets, and the universe is teeming with life. Apparently, this is his argument here. So I guess we'll move on to the next one. War of the Planets. Now, this is, I think, where it gets interesting. During an earlier epoch in the star system, serpents controlled Mercury and Venus. Martians controlled Mars, or believed that they did. As was true for humans, they believed they controlled planet Man, the asteroid belt, allowed and sometimes encouraged by star system rulers, the gods. Renegades infiltrated, manipulated, and influenced governing bodies, clans, and tribes of Martians on Mars for a duration of hundreds of millions of years. Before the rift, the battles between the inner planets, millions of years in the past, Martians battled primarily with the serpent races. Martians dispatched fleets of ships to planets Venus and Mercury with the intent of destroying the serpent race. Serpents had previously subjugated the Earth and its moons. Earth had two moons at that time. Interesting thought, isn't it, that the Earth used to have 2 moons instead of the one? Because if you look at most planets, they actually have more than 1 moon.
But some planets have none moons.
That's true as well. It's true. So the whole idea that there's these kind of like these factions, and again, like when you watch like Star Trek, what comes to mind there is talking to Star Trek Enterprise, when you had like the Xindi. Do you remember that? And like in that series, you had like the insectoids, and you had the reptilians, and you had the mammalians, and all this.
Was that
sort of
the
thing.
one? Was that the Star Trek that was like the theme tune at the beginning was like "We've come a long way"?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh fuck no! Oh man, I couldn't stand that.
I get what they were trying to do with Enterprise, but didn't really
it went all weird and dark and fucking, and the costumes didn't look right, and fuck it. They just didn't feel like Star Trek watching that one, man. It was nah. Like I sort of faded off it after, like, Voyager was good after the Next Generation, and then you had the one with what was the one with the ship? It was just stationary. There was it the black guy that he was the
DS9
captain. The DS9.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine.
That I think I stopped watching it after that.
Fair enough.
But it was 79 that kept me watching Voyager.
Yeah. Didn't show up until the 4th season either. But very interesting, this whole idea that we had more than 1 moon. But this will come into play in this next slide.
It's an interesting idea, exactly, mate. It's an interesting idea, but that's all it is. Is there any evidence? Is there any fucking where did they get this 2 moons stuff? You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Because they already say that our moon was created when the Earth, like, I think there was 2 orbiting bodies, and it smashed up, and a bit of the fucking shit flew away, and that became the moon, and we became the Earth. And it's, I don't know. I think that's what mainstream science tries to tell you. That fucking shit was
But
smashing into each other, and I think we've only ever had a moon up there.
I've got a book up on the shelf there called "Who Built the Moon," and I'm going to be getting into that in the future. The whole idea that the moon is an artificial body. I've got loads of books on all this stuff. In the future, I'm going to be getting way into all this stuff, deep diving into all of it. But there's also the idea, the theory that the moon as we know it, not our real moon, but the artificial moon, the one that we currently have, was actually created in Jupiter or on Jupiter over 1 billion years ago. And it's an artificial body because it's lighter than it should be and it's larger than it should be. And one time they set off a bomb or something like that and it rung like a bell for over an hour. Well, there was some kind of explosion on the moon and it proved to be hollow. There's also the theory that there's people who live on the moon. But these are all far out there theories. I mean, there's loads of theories about the moon. And the fact that half of it is obscured, the dark side of the moon. There's also the theory that when we die, that's where we go. We go to the lobby, as they call it, the waiting room before judgment is passed on us, whether we get to move on into the fourth dimension or we get sent back down if we failed, if we fucked it up. But there's all kinds of theories anyway. Sorry, I know I'm kind of losing you here. I can see your eyes glazing over. So I'll just move on to the next slide.
They were already glazed over when I started.
Let's get to the next one then. War of the Planets. Martians shied away from open warfare with serpents on Earth. Martians did maintain covert operations on Earth. One of Earth's moons was used against the Earth by the serpents. Serpents exploded the moon, causing it to shatter and fall onto Earth's surface. Fragments from the destroyed moon bombarded Earth with meteor showers and lasted thousands of years, which culminated in the sterilization of the planet. So in other words, they fucked up the moon to destroy it, the whole thing, to destroy our planet, and really a cruel thing to do. It was a planned process to cleanse infestations from Mars and Venus. Earth was a destination point mainly for entertainment, but had other nefarious uses. Earth was a neutral planet, a place of barbaric, ritualized killing by renegade clans, perverse indulgences that turned Earth into a bloodfest planet. Such activities lasted for countless millennia. Battles intended to feed an insatiable desire for blood and gore. Taking prisoners became the end game to add to the ritualized tortures in order to appease renegade demigods. And instantly that made me think of Star Wars with the Death Star being blown up over Endor, the first part of that, and the second part made me think of the Predator. The whole idea,
Exactly.
the lore of the Predator.
Exactly.
There's
They made you think
yeah,
of fucking movies. They never made you think of logic, science, reasoning, and evidence. It's just a lot of movie stuff that sounds cool, and you're interested in it because it does sound cool, because you've watched movies about similar stuff, and you want to get yourself wrapped in it and all this shit. But to me, if it's not got any truth in it, man, it's not worth my time. But I'm willing to listen to
okay.
the ideas before I dismiss them, because all I ask sometimes is just a scrape, a tiny, tiny, just a shred of evidence that there was reptiles fighting Martians, fighting fucking, like, what the hell's going on here? Like, where are we now? Like, that was, we're in a war now. Is it the war of the worlds? Or that's the thing, man. We've heard this shit before. We've watched it in the movies.
Yeah, but
I
there's
mean,
also the
all
idea that
this shit, man. This Star Trek, and it's like this Star Trek over again. That's what is it? That's all. It's just Star Trek, and the lizards fighting the fucking Star Trek, man. He's just copying Gene Roddenberry, or it is Gene Roddenberry under a pseudonym, fucking pretending he's wearing a lizard mask and he's pretending to be, who's that guy called again?
I don't know. Yeah, but there is also the idea that all these things will be put in the movies to acclimate us to it, to put the truth in front of us,
Right.
but in entertainment form so that we swallow it more easily rather than just cold hard, this is what happened. But,
I think these kind of ideas diminish how important we really are as a human race. We've only got each other, man. We've only got each fucking other, and be we should be preserving each other. Instead, we're warring with each other, we're killing each other, we're fucking robbing each other. There's a lot of good in the world, don't get me wrong, but these kind of ideas that we're some kind of special Martians, and there's Martians on this planet and this Martian, and it makes you think that there's all these kind of other things. It makes you feel less special because there's all these other races and all these superior things happening, and we didn't even know about it. Kind of most of the public are just walking around and no kind of there's planet the wars and shit. But that's what I'm saying. This kind of shit just makes the human race and people who believe it think that they're special, or there's something else out there that's more important, and it's not. And maybe what's important is here beside you, your next door neighbour, kind of old wifey next door, and whatever can just. And then again, mate, it just there's a, it's got that flavour of self-important, and I don't know. It's attaching something to other things that didn't exist, and I don't know, mate. I'm just finding it hard to fucking swallow right now with the lizard people fighting the fucking Martians, and there's Predator now running around fucking killing cunts. Arnold Schwarzenegger's fighting them. Fucking the whole thing's happening, man. It's fucking the Earth's fucked.
Oh dear. Well, you're living up to your name, aren't you? Ged Skeptic Media. You're being very skeptical. That's fine. I don't mind that at all. You know, I did ask for your
Yeah,
opinion. You know,
I'm no fucking I'm no skeptical for no reason. Okay? I mean, that's the thing.
yeah,
I always use logic. I do try and give stuff a chance. It's not like I try and just shoot down stuff, but this is not my first rodeo, mate. And I'm 41 year
yeah,
old. I've been through all this shit. I've read all these stories before, and a lot of them are cool. Kind of like them in the Matrix. And, oh, this Matrix idea. There's a lot of young guys walking about thinking that this is actually we're in a Matrix. Because this Andrew Tate guy can even talks about the Matrix, and it's the Matrix, and people are talking about people being NPCs, like non-player characters, kind of like fucking. This is just a Matrix and a simulation. And there's all these other ideas that are way fucking more hip than this whole lizard people fighting the Martians. I mean, it's like nah, they're old they're old stories, man. They're old fucking stories.
yeah. But where did they come from? That's you know, where did the stories originate?
Fucking drug-fueled orgies, probably somewhere in a castle in some fucking aristocrat's fucking basement. I think.
Probably. So War of, War of the Planets. So ritualized killing of humans, Martians, and others culminated in feasts and activities. Events continue for weeks, months, or sometimes years. What's this? Irish names and surnames, primary source edition. Okay. Patrick Wolf. Interesting. Okay, so where was it? Events, yep. Continued for weeks, months, and years. Cannibalism and the eating of desecrated flesh. Frenzies often erupted
Yummy.
into orgies of bloodlust. Gods taught them rudimentary skills of survival.
It's Blade now. We're in a Blade movie.
Well, it seems
Vampires.
like it. Before turning them loose, humans were preyed upon by various renegade clans and other creatures like the Predator, the Yautja. Okay, so the star system attracted infinite types of beings that craved to enslave lesser beings for battles against other creatures. Ferocious creatures competed for food and domination after the destruction of planet Man. That's an interesting subject, by the way.
Is
I'll
that
do a
what
whole
dinosaurs
presentation
were?
on that.
Was that the dinosaurs?
Don't know. Dinosaurs aren't mentioned in this. Much of the animal and plant life was destroyed. Earth required a shuffling of residents so as to achieve a diverse human population to be placed on the planet in stages. Selected renegade races were infused into the stock of Martians and humans from man, which created the current human races. So the idea, this, well, maybe not for yourself, Jed, but when I get into the planet man presentations later on in the future, this will all become quite important because the humans on man were quite different to humans now. The way it's described, it's not really brought up a lot in this presentation, but when I get to that presentation, I'll go through the whole thing. The humans from man were like utopian humans, like they were all bald, for example, and they had no body hair whatsoever, and they were all this sort of thing, and they lived in like a highly advanced, technologically advanced society, and it was completely blissful and peaceful. And the idea being that the modern humans are this mixture of these different races of the humans from man, which were like pure humans, and there's a mixture of renegade and reptilian and Martian all in our DNA pool, so that we're actually beings that are in conflict with ourselves because we're composed of all these groups that were in conflict with each other. So the conflict still continues within us because we're a mixture of all these things. That's the idea behind it, I think. But the whole idea that the planet was kind of like a playground for all these demonic entities and all these bloodlust, I mean, look at the state that we're in right now. We've got two major wars happening right now. We've got the Russia-Ukraine war, we've got the Israel-Hamas war, and God only knows what else is happening out there. So we are clearly a race that is in conflict with itself on the micro level, as in within each person, and on the macro level, as in we're at war with one another. So the idea that we're this jumble, this hybrid of all these different things that are in conflict, maybe it's not just so easy to dismiss that. Not in my opinion, but I can only speak for myself. What do you think?
I think a lot of these conflicts between countries is not they were really the people in the countries. It's the governments that start these conflicts. You know what I mean? It's so if you were to take away the governments, would people just get along to get along, sort of thing? You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. We'd probably still have our wars and battles, but I'm sure humans want to get along with each other. It's actually built within us for survival, to get along in the group. It's one of the reasons why we yawn. Like if you yawn in a group of people and people start mimicking you, people yawn as well because it's like an inbuilt thing to fit in a group to mimic other people, and they didn't even know why they're yawning. It's like a subconscious thing, and it's and like I said, just humans wanting to get along with each other is a subconscious thing we want to really do, and for you to want to kill or rob or to another person, I mean it's no natural. It's no natural. You'll be wanting to do that for a certain reason that's not natural. Like money. Money's not a natural thing. It's paper and fucking. People murder other people for money? Which is not. It's not even a real thing. It's just paper. It's not really anything.
No, that's true.
But aye, whatever, man. Who's this old guy on the screen anyway?
Who's that? That's Ray
that's
Winston.
That's you in a couple of years, mate.
Come on, I'm not that old. I'm actually younger than you are.
Exactly.
That's from the Noah
Look
movie.
At you, man. Look at you.
Yeah.
You come presented to me as an old man, like with your hat on, your fucking cardigan on, your fucking Rabsy Nesbitt the fucking vest on.
She actually sounds like my mum. That's what she says. She says, "You've never been a young man. You've always been old." That's what she says.
Stop being old, mate, because you'll die. You'll die quicker. It's up here, man. It's fucking up here.
I know it is. So yeah, you're talking earlier on about the Klingons. In my opinion, the Klingons are actually the Martians. They're standing for the Martians in Star Trek. But let's go into it here. So, Martian wars against the Serpents lasted countless eons and sputtered out ages ago. Martian refugees were exiled to Earth by the Serpents. Martians were a much more powerful race in the past, and they were able to hold their own against Serpents and other races for millions of years before their eventual downfall. Mars retains a significant and diverse population to this day, hidden on the surface and deep within Mars's innards, and the remnants of a once dominant Martian civilization. Mars remains subservient to various reptilian races. Present-day humans are unaware or vaguely aware of Martian life, populations of various creatures and beings on planets, moons, and the billions of space cities ships remains robust in the system. Before the downfall of Mars, Martians battle serpents relentlessly for control over planet Man and its 4 moons. Over the centuries, Mars made significant inroads into man. That reminds me of Warhammer 40k, the whole idea of space cities and things like this. And when you go into even like fictional games and things like this is all like manifesting what this is talking about here. It's all kind of like it's all presented in fictional form because it's games or video games or board games. But is this based on reality, or is it that somebody thought of it? But it's the whole chicken and the egg scenario. Is it that Warhammer 40k is based on this, or is it that the other way around? the guys who created Warhammer 40k read this and thought that'd be a good idea for a board game. You know?
I think there's more truth in chess.
No. As pertains to our reality. So I guess I'll just move on to the next one.
So the
So, like I
Martians
say-
got kicked off by the reptiles, and they're pissed off now. They've turned into
Mhm.
Klingons, but they've managed to fix their foreheads with some fucking. How do you manage to smooth out his fucking forehead? That's not right.
That was from
So he must
an
be.
episode
Oh,
in Enterprise.
he's a mixed race one, eh? He's a mixed race one, man. He's like
Yeah,
mixed
he's
with a human.
yeah,
He's like Bigfoot. He looks
mixture.
like big. He looks like Bigfoot and
Well,
Bigfoot and the Hendersons.
Bigfoot's coming up later on. Actually, funny you should mention.
Oh
But
fuck.
anyway, so
That's Bigfoot
we'll carry
and the
on here.
Hendersons. Eh?
It does look like a bit like that, doesn't he? So yeah, Mars. Sorry, man, not Mars. Man was dominated by a pure breed of humans. Humans remain mostly untainted by the greater part of Mars' multi-million year existence, but fringe beings, including Martians, managed to hide within the planet Man and its 4 moons. Serpents were chosen by the gods to pull the plug on the pure breed humans on Mars, its moons, and the whole of life. Star systems, post-destruction of man and 2 of its moons, serpents directed their wrath on Mars. So Mars was destroyed. Before the destruction of man, a number of humans had been taken to man, bred with Martians, to create a diverse Martian race that has human attributes, which is what we're seeing in Star Trek Enterprise, for example. Again, the truth is hidden in fiction, you could argue. Martians intended to use the human Martian hybrids to create and expand Martian colonies on Earth. A few colonies and outposts were created by Martians, but eventually they were rooted out and exterminated by serpents. Serpents enslaved the Martians that had survived on the brutal attack on Mars, and most of the space colonies' races from other star systems were crossbred with Martians, Venusians, and humans, and make up the ancestors of modern humans. Again, what I was saying about the conflict within us, because we're all mixture of all these different factions that were in conflict with each other. So the conflict exists within and without. That's the idea, at least. But again, like hiding the truth in plain sight with Enterprise. So, that's just the way that I see it. But something else that I was going to say there, I can't remember. Anyway, go ahead.
If this guy's telling us like just some kind of story, man, that he's made up and he's got a passion in sci-fi and stuff like that, man. Cool story, mate. But if this guy honestly believes this, mate, there's places for him. There's places for him. But nice padded rooms and white jackets that go like that.
Oh dear.
That's where you go.
All right. Well, I guess I'll move on to the next one then.
Oh, there's me in the morning. I wake up.
All right. So Vikings. The Vikings are from
My
Mars.
beard grows through the day like this. By the end of the night, it's like that. I wake up like that.
Okay. All right. So Vikings from Mars are one of the more recent concoctions. So the Vikings were from Mars. Yeah. That's where
Vikings
they're from
Mars.
that were
You're
dropped off on Earth
shitting
by
me.
the serpents. No, for real. Provided with leadership
by the serpents.
Yeah, with leadership skills and allowed to take over weaker tribes and societies. Serpents made frequent deposits on Earth of such barbaric tribes. I think I need glasses, actually. I'm struggling to read this. Spanning periods of thousands of years before the last major ice age, many additional deposits came after the ice age and the worldwide floods. We know the floods happened. Destruction of homogenized Martian societies by serpents left Martians on the brink of extinction. Many of the surviving Martian clans lapsed intellectually and technologically and became as beasts. Numerous Martian clans were deposited on Earth by the serpents. Martian tribes tamed wild roaming animals for domestic use, turning them into beasts of burden as well as readily available food sources. During the course of time, Martians underwent mutations, like you were saying about evolution, provoked by serpents to facilitate primate human lineages. Neanderthals were partially Martian. And what was it you were saying that before, that the Neanderthal DNA only exists in Europe,
Hmm.
doesn't exist outside of
Europeans.
Europe?
Yep.
Yeah, interesting that. So what I was saying before, remember a few weeks ago when I was talking about the origin of the white race being Martian, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Well, there's the connection. The missing link is the Neanderthal DNA, the Neanderthal blood, which is only found in the white race. The European race, races even. But yeah, I mean, doesn't exist outside of that. So the idea that the Martians took over Europe predominantly as their main area on this planet, because the white race only makes up what, 8-10% of the population. There's loads of hints at the white race not being native to Earth, or maybe that's oversimplifying it somewhat, because the white race is still predominantly human, but it's got that little bit of outside influence. It seems to be what's suggested here, that little bit of the reptilian slash Martian influence as well. But I don't know. What do you think? Just thought the Neanderthal connection was an interesting thing to put in there.
I like that shit, man. I like the whole Neanderthal idea, and I think it should be talked about more. It's probably
Yeah.
maybe why certain Europeans get diseases that other races don't, kind of like MS. That's kind of, I
Mm.
think, certain black people, but really find that that black person's maybe got some European in them as well. And it's like a European disease, MS. And it's like one of
Mm.
these. It could be kind of from certain genetics that we picked up along the way, and
Yeah.
in Neanderthals, can apparently we got our large brains and language and shit from Neanderthals because they were meant to be quite smart, like I said before, Neanderthal.
Well, there is
Obviously,
the
not smart enough to not get destroyed by the modern humans.
there is that. I mean, the one of my favorite YouTubers is a guy called Terrence Popp, and he served in the U.S. Army for over 30 years. And he said through experience that black soldiers really struggle in the cold next to white soldiers. White soldiers do a lot better in cold climates than black soldiers, because they tend to suffer from pulmonary illnesses, which is your lungs,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. They struggle in the cold a lot
We
more.
store vitamin D better,
Yeah.
and because of our white skin, we store it better. So we
There's,
sort of produce it, and we can produce it as well better. Like I think we do reproduce our own vitamin D as well through the foods and stuff that we eat into us.
mm.
But it's from
Also,
obviously from the sun. It's from the sun, and it can be cold. It can be cold and wet in Scotland, but you still get some intense sunshine. And for this, again, you can get sunburnt in the winter if you sit in the sun long enough. Can your face becomes red for the sun?
there's also other indicators as well, like Asian races tend to be lactose intolerant a lot more. Like they tend to have a lower
Hmm.
tolerance for things like cheese and dairy products and things like that. And they also have a much lower threshold when it comes to
That's
alcohol.
Yep. I
If
think
you,
that's because we've been doing like animal husbandry and stuff longer, and can probably like
yeah,
because of the cold conditions, having to make cheeses and milk and just stuff like we've been consuming dairies can longer, I think,
yeah.
than other continents. The Europeans
I
have been
remember.
eating cheeses and milks and fermenting stuff.
I remember years ago. I used to live in China many, many years ago. I remember my best mate when we were over there. He'd only had 3 pints, and he was absolutely pissed. I mean, he was more pissed than I was on my birthday. After 3 pints, he was fucking gone.
Depends what I had
Like,
3 pints of. It could be 3 pints of vodka, man.
no, this was just normal beer, like normal beer that you would drink. You think it was 13 pints, no three. But anyway, we get a bit sidetracked. Let's get on to the next one. So we're still on the theme of the Martians. Martian ruins covered
I'm
the
going
Martian
outside.
surface.
I'm still going to be here, but I'm going outside.
Okay, going out for
You
a
can,
smoke.
aye, you
Okay,
still keep talking. I'm just taking my phone outside, man. It's fucking
aye, neighbour,
listening
that's
to your
fine.
Martian stories.
Okay, so Martian ruins covered the Martian surface for eons, and Mars was attacked by the serpents and left desolated remnants of cities. Most vestiges are buried deep in the Martian soil or lie loose in the many caverns and caves inside Mars's vast interior. Many of the surviving Martians were moved to caverns beneath the Martian surface by the serpents. Martians were allowed to subsist and exist in miserable conditions until they were relocated to other planets and moons. Martians were enslaved and used as labor, warriors, and for hybridization with native beings. On the planets and moons they were relocated to, numerous Martians managed to escape and hid deep inside the interior of Mars. Martians who were away from the planet and Martian colonies when the serpents attacked retained some autonomy along with their mental faculties and skills. Those Martians had advanced ships that were that they continued to use for survival. And the image I put up there was from the first Terminator movie. The idea of like people having to live underground because they're in this war against a technologically superior opponent and all this sort of thing. Oh, hang on, you're on mute, mate. You're on mute.
I
There we
know,
go.
because I was like rustling a bit in the background. I didn't want to disturb your reading,
All right,
so
okay.
I muted myself.
Mm. Cool, appreciate that. So, what's your thoughts on that?
The Terminator idea, or the
Oh, just
Martian
all of it, really.
hiding in the. Oh, well, suppose is that not what the cavemen done? Hid away in
Yeah,
caves, for predators.
yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So if their planet was destroyed and all this, and I will get into this in the future. I've got loads of books about it, like Cydonia. You ever heard of all this? Like Cydonia and the
Aye,
city on
the
Mars
Knights
and the
of
face on
Cydonia.
Mars. Not about Knights of Cydonia, but the region of Cydonia and the pyramids and the city on Mars and the face on Mars and all this sort of thing. And I've got
Yeah,
loads of
mate.
books covering that.
I didn't believe we can get to the moon. I don't think it's even possible to get outside our atmosphere.
Yeah,
Humans would be annihilated by the Van Allen belt for starters. The radiation. We couldn't get through the Van Allen belt. It would
that's
fry
true.
us.
I think that's true.
But
Actually, I agree with you.
but at the end of it, like, so I just think all these stories about Mars and people coming and going from back and forth from Mars. I didn't think it ever happened, man. I didn't think it ever happened. I didn't think there was wars with fucking Martians and reptiles and space Vikings.
Fair enough.
But
All
like I
right.
said, if it's a science fiction story, man, it's cool. Can keep reading. It's entertaining.
Okay. So head on to the next one. Being a Trekkie, you'll recognise the image, no doubt. A few Martians found refuge at the outer edges of the star system, the remnants of destroyed planets and moons. Martian survivors, allowed by the serpents, reside on most of the inner planets and moons in the star system. Martians scavenge materials to build surface and underground habitats. Select breeds of young Martians infused with compatible genes to humans were taken to the Earth and other planets by the serpents to populate and intermix with humans. Martians subsequently introduced the smelting of iron to humans through the conquering of human cities and societies. Bronze, iron, and other metals are innate to Earth and native to all planets and moons in the star system. And that just really reminded me of the whole thing with Khan in Star Trek 2, the Wrath of Khan, the City Alpha 5, and all this is like a stand in for Mars and survivors and all this. And instantly, like I say, when I'm going through these slides, when I was preparing them, all these sort of TV shows and movies and things like this sprung to mind. I'm like, we have actually seen this before. Everything that Lou Baldwin is talking about, we've seen it in fictionalized form. Nothing's been hidden. It's all right there. Only is it fiction or is it kind of thinly veiled fiction, if you get what I mean?
I think all these stories come from earthly events. Like you could swap tribes as a can one tribe over there is the reptiles, the Romans as the Martians, can the whoever can you could can these stories that you hear about interbreeding and slavery, and you could put it on a human level. And this is where the stories can it's maybe metaphors for other races rather than
Mm.
can maybe Mars is another country. Can and
Oh,
you never know what
there's a
the
possibility.
message is here. And like I said before, like these stories, the Martians giving us iron and fucking showing us how to melt and smelt and shit like that. Mate, that's just taking away the achievements of what we achieved. It was the same with the pyramids, aliens. No, it wasn't fucking aliens, it was humans.
Mm.
Humans done that shit. You know what I mean?
Apparently, it was the
We should be
Irish.
proud of it. We should be
Yeah,
proud
if you
of it.
read if you read Conor McDaddy, I think is the author. He's saying that the Irish built the pyramids,
I've
or
read
the
I've read
Phoenicians.
the Ireland's the land of the Ur. Is it Ur?
Yeah, yeah.
That's on my
I know,
YouTube
I know what you
channel.
mean. I can't remember the name. Uh,
But
but I,
I think they're interesting stories, mate. But I like these. I like the stories that are like fixed to earth. And okay, we've got tribes over here trying to take over cultures over there. They're taking the women. They're taking the children. And we know that these things happened, and we know.
yeah,
And there's evidence. There's evidence for it happening here. You know
it's
what I mean?
true.
And these ideas that Martians gave us technology and fucking it just takes away from the human achievement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I get where you're coming from, definitely. So we'll carry on here. Mars.
So far,
Go
the
ahead.
story makes us feel less important because there's loads of other fucking things in the universe doing other shit, other making us slaves and shit like that. There's all these other reptiles and all these kinds. So already the story is making us feel insignificant, and then they're making us feel more insignificant because they gave us this technology. They showed us what iron was. Thanks.
Mm,
I know shows what your steel is or whatever it is that you made to come at the planet. I'm sure you never
right.
came in iron ships.
Mm. It's a good point. I had never considered any of this, but very interesting to get your perspective on it because I never thought of it that way. But we'll carry on here. Mars had one large moon that was destroyed during the attack by the serpents. Some of the moon fragments fell to Mars, and the rest scattered to other planets and moons. Earth received sporadic shipments of Martian hybrids post Neanderthal stage and again after the floods. Martians adapted to cold climates after the near destruction of their race and planet. Martians that were resettled on Earth were deposited in northern climates. Again, what we're saying about Europe, climates that were suitable for them after their decline on Mars. Martians were aggressive by nature and became more so because of the despairing conditions they were placed into. Martians pillaged, subjugated, and displaced most of the races. They made contact. Sorry, that made. I think it was meant to be that made contact with Martians. Kills the males and impregnated the females, spawning new breeds of humans that were later destroyed by serpents. And again, that goes back to what we were saying earlier on about the whole idea that the Neanderthal were unique to Europe. They never existed really outside of Europe. And so the whole idea that there's the Martian Neanderthal connection in the north, particularly in places like Greenland, Iceland, Britain,
Like we
Ireland,
were saying before,
Europe.
like we were saying before, right? So we could this whole extraterrestrial we could easily it could easily be a metaphor for modern humans breeding with Neanderthals, and out of that breeding comes a even more aggressive and superior because it gets the best of both worlds, and then it conquers tribes, other tribes, and you could say that about the modern Europeans. I mean, like what we evolved into.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the world today, who's got the best armies? Who's got the most? Who's the most got the best weapons? And again, it's still the Europeans and the kind of the white race, and the Americans, the British, the Europeans.
Well, yeah, something that's
Africans and the Middle Easterns, can they rely on the shit for us? Or selling them shit?
well, what's the highest rank in the army? Above general? Martian.
Mate,
Marshal.
is it Marshall?
Marshal.
Major?
Yeah, that's the highest rank. Is if you're the head
Yeah.
of the army, you're called the field marshal or the marshal. It's practically in the fucking name. Marshal. What do you mean,
But
Martian?
that's where the surname Marshall comes from. Okay, when you got the surname Marshall, you can same as Stuart, kind of steward.
Yeah.
So it was a ranking. Same as Sergeant, you can get the surname Sergeant as well, like Mark Sergeant from Flat Earth.
Yeah. Well, you know what is I always say that everything in life is self-evident if you're paying attention. I mean, what you're saying about the Europeans, in other words, the Martian race being superior at war. That is our talent. That is our speciality. It always has been. We are superior when it comes to armed conflict and war. We have always been. That's why we have the European armies. Is that something to take pride in? Not particularly, but it
That's
remains true.
why.
You know,
That's why when China invented the gunpowder, we're the ones that invented the guns.
Hmm.
They were
That
they
doesn't
were
mean
they
that
were
we're
they were inventing rocket chairs, fireworks.
well.
Wee! We're like
I
that.
think
Fucking,
each.
we conquered them with their own shit.
Having said that, I don't think that any one part of humanity is superior to the others. I don't subscribe to notions of white supremacy or racial supremacy. I think
I
we each have
think
our talents.
it's technology. It's nothing to do with like
Yeah,
race or anything like that. It's
yeah,
like you said, how the Martians became, because of the harsh conditions, that they became more hardy and more battlesome and more kind of. And that's the same with Europeans. Like, you're in a
mm,
warm country, you didn't have to worry about your shelter. You didn't have to worry about food because there's plenty of animals running around. You're in Europe, in the winter time, you have to be. You have to start building shelters, making clothes, hunting animals, all this, and if you do that for a few thousand years, the people that are made out of that can become superior to the other guys that are just lying in the sun in the tropical beach with the fucking coconuts. You know what I mean?
I
We've
also say
invented the
that.
wheel. We've invented the wheel and all that shit, and they're still in the Stone Age. They're still like cavemen.
Well, I'll often tend to think, if this makes sense, that your weakness is also your strength. And I think when it comes to European races, the fact that we are so outnumbered by all the other races is what drove us to excel, because we kind of had to, because we were so heavily outnumbered, if that makes sense. We only make up 10% of the population of the world, if it's even that, or was it 8% now? But we were always outnumbered. The white race was always outnumbered by everyone else. So the fact that we were so outnumbered was what really pushed us to excel, because we kind of had to. Because if this theory is right, we came from somewhere else. We came from a planet where we were kicked out of or expelled. We were dropped off here. We were already had our backs to the wall. We were facing extinction. We had to push ourselves, otherwise we would have gone out forever. If you know what Lou Baldwin is saying is true. Granted, I know you don't believe that, but you know what he's saying when you put it into context. Kind of, when you think about it, kind of makes sense. If our backs were against the wall and we're facing going out, lights are going to go out forever unless we excel and push ourselves. This kind of makes sense in a way, but not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying, from a historical perspective, if you kind of look at it, frame it in that, that we came here with an aggressive nature, that we lost our planet, that we were desperate, that we were in a very weak position, because we were going to go out, and we just thought, fuck it, we need to take this by the balls here, and we just need to push.
The
But
thing is,
uh,
the Europeans probably did go through all those things without being Martians. You know what I mean? Probably
yeah,
came from other places and had to move on to other. This is what I think. As we're moving through Europe, moving through the world, as the battles were coming across, the tribes were meeting, whatever. God knows how many tribes have been wiped out, completely, that they might have not been the same. And
yeah. Did you ever see Prelude to Axanar? That was kind of like a Star Trek spin-off type thing about what they called the 4 Years' War. You ever see that? There was a great quote in that. A great quote in that. Don't push the pinkskins to the thin ice. And that was from one of the Vulcans quoting Shran. Remember the Andorian from Enterprise who was friends with Captain Archer. If you got that far in the series, he was quoting him. I can't remember the name of the Vulcan, but he says, "Don't push the pinkskins to the thin ice." Uh, but it's quite an. It reminds me of that, going through all this. So anyway, Mars before the last war.
there's
During
that
the
Klingon again.
later,
There's the Klingon guy again.
actually, that's Bigfoot. What was his name? Harry and the Hendersons. Mars before the last war. During the later stages of Martian existence, prior to subjugation by the serpents, Martians existed in a state of conflict fraught with warring Martian clans. Mars never experienced an age of peace and spread warfare to Earth. Serpents turned Martians loose to hunt and desecrate. Earth received countless Martian clans. Interesting how he uses that word there, clans specifically. I mean, you think of Scotland, right? We weren't in different tribes, we're in different clans. Interesting how he chose that word, I thought. Anyway, some early societies were completely wiped away. Others were assimilated and became part of the Martian bands. For centuries prior to the last ice age, renegade Martian and human hybrids flooded the Earth and again were decimated, most destroyed by floods, pestilence, plagues, and other calamities created or aided by serpents. Martians came in many shapes and sizes: large, tall, small, short, hairy, and ape like, which is why I put Harry in, to mention only a few variations. Martians are a conglomeration. Oh, hang on, whoops, excuse me. Conglomeration of species and races from other star systems. So the idea being that the Martians themselves were a hybrid of all these different groups, and that was in some of the previous installations, I think, of this series, Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth. When you go to the prior ones, it's certainly going to come up in the future, 5 to 8. The idea that actually the modern humans or even Martians, they came from a variety of systems, like Orion, like Sirius, all these systems out there. The Lycra system, I think, was the name of one of them. The Dogon system. Uh, Interesting that the whole idea that the Sphinx is actually a dog. Anubis, I think, is the name of the Egyptian deity. The
Anubis.
whole Anubis, yeah, the whole dog star thing. All the temples, like the Great Pyramid, they're facing towards the dog star, Sirius. What like that? The wolf system. That's what was described as the tribe of the wolf. That's even go back to your own name. What's
Yep.
your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I'm a Martian. I'm just not telling anyone, but I'm a renegade Martian.
Well, there we go. Shall I continue?
There's my granddad at the bottom of the screen. He's got the same beard. It's just greyer.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So, Mars before the last war. Martians had communities within cities and functioned under laws that were imposed on various clans. Mars was a hodgepodge of races congealed from millions of years of Martian conquest on various planets and moons, and the merging and mating of subjugated races. Over the period of thousands of hybridized generations emerged a social order, a type of civilization of sorts. Mars had attempted to colonize Earth before succumbing to reptilian and serpent attacks, who had ambitions for Earth. Martian technology was substantial and helped carry them to the outer reaches of the star system and beyond. Traveling out of the star system without the aid of higher beings was suicide, but Martians entered the dark vastness between the stars nonetheless. Again, Warhammer 40k. It's all in their lore, their mythology. Martians found refuge on planets, moons, and large asteroids, and deep into the dark abyss of endless space. Some Martians, in their search for real estate, became victims of beastly and foreboding creatures. And this is all in Star Trek. With if you go into like the whole Star Trek Online thing with the Klingons, all these subjugated races that they were all, and it's all in fiction. There's nothing in any of
Total
this.
Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah,
The original one with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I've never actually seen that movie. Do you know that?
You
At
never
least
seen the original Total Recall?
I don't remember seeing it. I've seen clips of it. I maybe
Yeah,
saw
and
it
he
when I
goes
was
to
younger,
Mars
like
and it's
10 or
got all the
something.
mutated people in it and all the different like mutated people and stuff. They all look
I remember
strange.
seeing
They've all got like weird deformations and stuff.
I remember seeing a clip of a woman with 3 breasts.
Hmm.
Oh, I trust that to be the one thing I'd remember. But you know, the whole idea that and the image that I put in there was from Predator 2 when Harrigan, played by Danny Glover, love that movie, by the way. I love Predator 2. When he goes on the ship and he sees the trophy room with all the aliens, including humans that the Yaoja, the predators, have hunted throughout the years. When you watch these movies like Predator or Predator 2 or Predators and all this, when they end up on this planet and they're all hunting each other and they're being hunted by these creatures, it makes you think, this is always in this book. This is always there. There's nothing being hidden. It's all right in front of us. It always has been right in front of us. If we just watch these things with educated eyes, that's how I see it. But I think you're of a different opinion. But you know, any thoughts on that before we move on to the next slide?
Total Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah, I haven't seen the Colin Farrell movie, but I'll need to watch that again. So, yeah, Mars before the last war. Speaking of Total Recall, Martians had families or a semblance of what a family is, a group of beings under one roof but not necessarily related. Mars had large cities and small villages with cooperatives with other villages, cities, and towns. Martians were not differentiated by countries as Earth is today. It was a conglomeration of cities, fortified and widely spread out. The planet was ruled by a council of powerful Martians who attempted to rule over Mars, but order was wishful thinking. On a planet that was run by belligerent warlords, Martian societies were deeply involved with the occults, unlike modern times on Earth. The spirits were openly active and manifested frequently around Martian clans. Spells had a real punch to them, and Martian wizards could turn other Martians into freakish creatures and with the help of dark entities. So, what's your thought on that? On the like poltergeists and evil spirits and things like that, and the fact that the Martians were
It's now
poking
turning
around with
into
the
like
occult?
space Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I suppose it is
Gandalf.
really. Yeah, the whole idea that you can conjure up these evil spirits, and that they would do this frequently, and all the rest. And I don't know. Do you believe in ghosts or spirits or
The
things like
thing
that?
is, right, I think if you've got like a story like this you want to tell people, I think you should try and stick with the sort of stuff that's more believable. Like maybe just stick with the right. We might have came from Mars. Let's see. Let's show the people how that could have been possible. That could have been possible.
Mhm.
Like, but they throw in this other shit like space wizards and space Vikings and fucking. It just gets more and more absurd, mate.
Yeah. That's a fair comment. It's a fair point. Um, it reminds me of like Escape from LA and all this sort of thing, and Escape from New York. The whole idea that we're degenerate into all these tribes or the mad. I've never actually seen any of the Mad Max movies. Never seen them, but
No
I should
way.
really watch them after this. Yeah,
I grew up watching them, man.
yeah. But I guess a lot of the stories in those movies are kind of like this, right? It's like warring tribes with each other, fighting over resources.
It's like a aye.
I need to watch those movies. So there's only 5 more slides. You'll be glad to hear. We'll get through this pretty quickly. Mars before the last war. A few overlords attempted to control some types of paranormal activity, expelled sorcerers, and killed off some of those who continued to aggressively practice the dark arts. Black magic owned Martian societies. Belief in benevolent beings was a strange concept and one that was never taken seriously by most Martians. So they only believed in a dark side. Many types of Martians beings existed on Mars, few of which survived the serpent cleansing. Martian experimented and bred with many types of creatures. Martians were a technologically advanced race. Again, what we're saying about Europeans and Neanderthals, all this. Martians were capable of cloaking themselves and also of cloaking ships. Their bag of tricks included chameleon technology. Employing such skills made finding Martians a challenge for other Martians and sometimes for the serpents. Modern Martians that escaped the serpents had their cloaking capabilities to attack. So now we're just getting further and further in. We've got cloaking devices now. In Star Trek, the Klingons have the cloak. This is why I'm saying that I think in fiction and Star Trek, the Klingons represent the Martians. That's stand-ins for the Martians in the fictional version. The
Mm-hmm.
idea that they were hybrids, that whole thing was introduced in the Enterprise series. But anyway, what's your thoughts? I don't want to yammer on.
Nah, like I said, I'm just going to take it as a sci-fi story, man, and like just find it entertaining rather than try and because I can't take this really too seriously as a theory,
Mhm.
should we say, scientific historical theory. I don't know where do you want to go with this, mate? You really into this?
Yeah.
Are you believing this shit, man? Come on,
You think I've gone off my head?
you believe in this shit?
I believe in the possibility. Yeah. Yeah.
There's always
But
a possibility, man. There's always a fucking possibility. But really, Ken, really, you're diverting your attention for your Scottish history and all this stuff to fucking this stuff,
well, this is part
mate.
of Scottish history, as far as I'm
It's
concerned.
fucking no. It's no. What we're going to get is Space Braveheart next. Is that what the next slide is?
No, we'll get to the next slide. Braveheart's not mentioned in
Well,
it.
we've had
But,
Space Vikings and we've had what was the other one? Space Wizards. I'm just waiting for the fucking Space William Wallace now.
no, William Wallace is there's no in this one. Anyway, we'll get back here. So Ghostbusters with New York. Oh, by the way, see when we get into the later ones, or when I get into the later ones, but the mainstream Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth, we get into New York is being like a place where the Draco, the dragons, are in force. But that's in the future. That's a future presentation. Anyway, Poltergeist.
Can't wait.
Serpents. Serpents destroyed many Martian clans due to their extensive paranormal aberrations, which manifested into physical mutations. Serpents, gods, and reptilians had paranormal clients that they engaged with, but the clients were not controlled by the dark and magical creatures as some Martians were. Martians had a long standing affair with spirit beings, and that opened up a vast network of paranormal vortexes into Martian territories. They opened a vortex between dimensions and released a massive ghoul contagion. Which reminds me also of the movie Event Horizon when they go to an alternative reality. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, it's a brilliant movie. Good
Oh, I love
movie.
that movie. Yep.
Good horror, space horror.
Oh no, it was really well done, wasn't it? The contagion was created by the destruction of millions of Martians by the serpents. Many souls lingered and pestered the living Martians who had opened themselves up to dark forces. Subsequently, Martian tribes and clans brought with them their black magic and rituals to Earth eons before they would be mated to modern humans. Magic itself is neither good nor bad, but in the hands of mortals, it becomes an extension of the souls who wield it. So, what's your thoughts on that? The idea that the Martians were fucking with things that they shouldn't have been fucking with, that they were, open up these vortexes and getting possessed by evil spirits. And I don't know, even as I say it, it sounds like I've kind of even
It's a
when I
good
say it
movie,
out
mate.
loud,
It's a good movie. It's a good movie, man. I can imagine it in my head. All this shit happening, space vortex, fucking wizards coming through it and magic, black magic. Oh, fucking.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Harry Potter universe, because the symbol of the bad guys, Slytherin, is the serpent, and it's always talked about the serpents controlling the Martians and things like that. And there's an argument that one of the Martian symbols is the lion, which was Gryffindor, and then with Game of Thrones, you've got the Lannisters. The whole idea that they have green eyes, blonde hair, green eyes, that they're a bit different from everyone else, that they consider themselves to be superior. Not that they are, but I'm saying that they consider themselves to be. And the whole idea with Gryffindor being like the brave ones who are superior and all this sort of, maybe there's that kind of Martian connection there with the whole lion motif and things like that. In Edinburgh, lions all over the place. But anyway, maybe I'm stretching it a bit.
I didn't really know the Harry Potter universe either, man. So when you're throwing all these names at me, man, I didn't get fucking. I'm just no Harry Potter guy, man.
Fair enough. I'm not particularly
Yeah.
interested in it either. Well,
Yeah.
Harry Potter. No, actually, that ended up.
Yeah. That's a
Huh?
Harry Potter house coat you've got on.
This. It's just a bathrobe.
Nah, he wore that in one of his films.
Did he? Who did?
Aye. Daniel Radcliffe.
Did he?
Nah, I
One of the
don't.
Harry Potter films.
I don't care, man. I don't care. I don't care about Harry Potter. Oh, that looks spooky.
Okay, yeah, that was from Raiders of the Lost Ark. That image on the side there. Okay, so anyway, paranormal creatures were allowed by some Martian clans to enter into their bodies and be possessed, and were easily led to do the bidding of dark creatures. Poltergeists are remnants of lost souls trapped wherever soul-bearing beings reside. Poltergeists have no fixed form and are horrifically disfigured creatures, appalling and frightening. Poltergeists can only possess beings that allow them energy. They have to be asked. The host is terrorized and paralyzed while the poltergeist takes control and manifests powers and magic. that is attributed to the possessed. Poltergeist deceive others into believing they are the person that they have taken over by using similar speech patterns and mannerisms once manifested or once infested even. Need glasses. The Martian was doomed, and nothing but death would release the Martian from the dark spirit and the treacherous influences they brought.
Pardon me.
Sorry. Any thoughts on that?
Well, now you're trying to make me believe in ghosts now.
No, not at all.
You're trying to make me believe in
like.
magic. You're trying to make me believe in magic. You're trying to make me believe in fucking space Martians and Vikings. You're trying to make me believe in fucking like all these things, mate. Fair enough. Throw one at me and get my brain thinking. Get my maybe he's right. Fucking. You're trying to make me believe in ghosts now.
Well, have you heard of the
poltergeists?
Have you ever heard of the Mackenzie poltergeists through in Edinburgh?
I've heard of loads of ghost stories and lady. There's loads of little folklore stories that go with little things around places. Like I've heard loads of like in Castorfin, there's a lady well, a place called Ladywell, and apparently there was a well, and I'm sure she killed her husband and threw him down it or something like that. And now his ghost goes around looking for her, or her ghost goes around. It's called the White Lady actually, and there's a pub in Castorfin Road, St John's Road, called the White Lady. And you just find kind of, if you wonder what the name of even a pub is, and you find that kind of the wee story, and it's been going for like hundreds of years, kind of like. So you find it, and like certain women who haunt castles, kind of like I've been to so many castles, and there's some wee story about there's a spirit or a fucking ghost kind that still walks up and down the hallways looking for her husband or something like that. Kind of. So it's deep in our culture, mate. Ghosts in the afterlife and all that shit. You know what I mean? And it's probably more believable than Martians and space Vikings, I think. Like there could be a spiritual.
Oh dear, you're making me question my own sanity.
Maybe you needed someone to question your fucking sanity. Maybe you're going to go fucking nuts, mate.
Oh dear me.
Maybe your mum just gave in. Maybe your mum just gave in and went, "Fuck's sake, I've lost him. I've lost my son to this shite."
If you asked her, she probably would say that. Oh dear. Okay, so there's only a couple more to go. You'll be glad to hear.
Your poor mother. I bet you've been sitting. I bet you've been sitting there throwing all these theories at her. I bet she's like, "For fuck's sake."
Absolutely not. No, I never brought any of this up with her. She would say, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Exactly, mate.
She'd be like, "You thought all this shite, get out of my room." Is this the fucking shite that you're reading about? Honestly,
I thought it was history. I thought you were good at history, son.
Well, that and all. Anyway, only a couple more slides. You'll be relieved to hear. Humans are prone to.
Do you want me to read this one so it's not so monotone? Like,
okay, on you go.
I'll give your eyes a rest.
Okay, on you go.
Hey, what the fuck does that say? I'll look at it. Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Humans are prone to follow mesmerizing leaders whose souls are from the phantom realms. Frequent conflicts were initiated by entities with roots in the phantom zone. The spirit world is far larger and grander than the physical world. All souls will ultimately return to the spirit domain. Martian souls believed that they were destined to move to lower levels of existence, Hades, after death. A concept they brought to Earth because Earthlings were morons and they had to bring that concept. Anyway, modern human souls are tinged with a mixture of Martian, reptilian, and renegade soul essence. Humans on Earth are a hodgepodge of souls with varying flavors of highly dissimilar beings while inhabiting similar genetically constructed human bodies. But similarities end there.
Okay. Well done.
Jesus.
Yeah, right. That
That was
wasn't as
hard read.
monotone.
That was hard reading it, man. Hodgepodge. Who fucking puts hodgepodge in a fucking paragraph?
Not many
Fuck's
people.
sake.
But the whole thing about mesmerizing leaders from the Phantom realm. Well, Hitler was into the occult big time. Everyone knows that. You watch movies like Indiana Jones. Obsessed with the Ark of the Covenant and all the rest of it. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the movie, I don't know why. The French guy dresses up as a Jewish priest, even though he's with the Nazis, and tries to do it. That's so confusing. It's like, what? Why are the Germans who are anti-Jewish so obsessed with Jewish stuff? It's kind of a bit odd, but the whole idea that they mess with the phantom realms, and what was I saying? I'm getting sidetracked here, but Hitler was obsessed with the occult. Everyone knows that. The idea that there's Aryan supermen who live on the planet and the Hollow Earth, and it all ties in with the whole Vril Society and the
Ubermensch.
Thule Society. Yeah, Ubermensch, exactly. All blonde hair, blue eyed, and all the rest of it. And I picked that image. That was from Voyager, the one on the top right hand side. That was when the Herodian, who are again standing for kind of a reptilian race, take over the ship, and they turn the holodecks into like a World War II fantasy. And there's this guy who talks about the purity of the German Reich blood and all the rest of it, and all that crap, which is a load of shit. But the Nazis based all this thing. It was really the dark side of this whole Martian philosophy kind of thing. That's where it gets dangerous, by the way. That's where the whole Martian idea with the Vril Society and the Thule Society, and they're sporting the Martian colors, and the whole Roman Empire as well was an offshoot of all these ideas. But that's where it starts getting really dangerous. So you have to be careful when you get into all this, because you do have to kind of look at these things, but you have to look at them objectively and not fall to the dark side, starting to believe that the white race is superior and all this sort of thing, which is untrue. No part of humanity is superior to any other part of humanity. It is true that we do have particular attributes and skills that we maybe excel at more than the other parts of humanity, but that doesn't make us superior. It might make us maybe slightly better at one thing, but then the other race will be better at something else. Like, for example, I think the black race is superior at athletics because they're native to this planet. It makes perfect sense. You won't see a football team in England that doesn't have at least half the squad are black. Well, there's a very good reason for that, because they're superior at athletics. The white race tends to be superior at war because we came from, well, we have that Martian blood. Mars is the war planet, that sort of thing. But it just depends on how you look at it. But in the end, it all balances out. It all evens out because it's like unity through diversity kind of thing. But anyway, I'm yabbering on. I'm kind of getting sidetracked here anyway. So, what are your thoughts?
I think we are superior in technology
Yeah,
because we were living in colder climates.
yeah. We came from a harsher environment, so we would need to be more. We were driven, like it ties back to what I was saying earlier on. Our weakness became our strength. The fact that we had
And
our backs to the wall, and
the reason why like black people are actually better than athletics and white people is because they're still in tune with their hunter gatherer phenotype. Their bodies are still built for the hunt. Where we've
mhm,
been what we've been doing for a couple of 100 years, reading books, sitting around, can farming on the land, isn't it? Can when modern machinery came in, like people came off the land. You know what I mean? It's like so we've changed our bodies have changed because we're no as physical anymore. Where Africans are still in tune, in touch with our kind of they've evolved for and we've evolved. Can we even our facial, even our jaws, can even our chins are getting smaller and that because we're not chewing food as much. You know what I mean? Our brows. I'm still quite archaic. My features, can I've got a Neanderthal thing going on, the big cheekbones and the quite bony face. You know what I mean? Going on, but
mhm.
and I'm tall and athletic as well. Kind of, well, I see myself as that. So I see myself as more in touch with my ancient like genetics,
Yeah,
like aristocracy. You know what I mean? It's like they've made themselves weaker because they're not out in the fields, can work in the farms, and black people, as soon as they came out of their countries, they were still doing hard toil and work. Same with white people, but they were still in tune with our hunter-gatherer bodies, while we went on to husbandry and farming, and we could relax more. And instead of running around hunting all the time, throwing spears at animals, we could sit around and wait for our crops to grow, kind of as the sheep eat the grass. You know what I mean? It's like we got lazy, kind of, so our bodies changed along with that. Well, the Africans were still on the hunt. You know what I mean? They were still hunting shit down. Fair enough, they probably had a certain level of agriculture and a certain level of farming, but no on the scale that the Europeans had. So our bodies evolved to that. You know what I mean? So I think if we looked at Europeans, kind of like maybe a 2,000 years ago, would our faces, our body types be a lot different? Because if they weren't, we wouldn't survive.
Yeah, I mean, good argument. Yeah,
we wouldn't be fat slobs anyway, because you wouldn't survive fucking 2,000 years ago being a 300-pound, 25-stone fat slob.
No, you certainly would not.
You wouldn't survive. The only people that survived that were like that were the royalty, because I had people running about for them. But if you were just a normal person and you were that size, you're dead. You're dead.
McDonald's was the death knell of civilization. There you go.
But that's why I think blacks are more athletic.
Yeah, I tend to agree. That's quite a cogent argument, I would say. And also, I noticed that Asian people, because I lived in Asia for about 4 years, Asian people come together in collectives and groups better than anyone else on the planet. They're very family orientated, and that's the way that it actually should be. The only other place I've really seen it is the Mediterranean. Places like Italy and Spain, traditional Roman Catholic cultures, and Asian cultures. They're the ones who stick to groups and tribes and family units very, very strongly, and maintain their traditions. And I say that, and obviously in a very positive sense. I'm commending them for it. But anyway, we'll wrap this up because it's gone midnight. There's only 2 more slides. I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Jeez. But reptilians, sorry, do you want to read this actually?
If you want, man, I can read this again.
Yeah. Sure, on you go.
Reptilians, non-humans, reptilians, were symbiotic with the humans of man. The demise of humans drastically reduced the numbers of reptilians that were dependent on human populations. Humans existed on every planet, moon, large and small asteroids, and every nook and cranny in the star system, out to its very edge. This was favourable to reptilians. Reptilians are far more advanced than humans. Reptilians are extremely elusive creatures. Humans were unaware that reptilians had an insatiable need for organic substances. Reptilians came to the humans during the night. Reptilians sometimes lay next to the human while the humans slept in their own beds. Reptilians' tentacles found their own way to human organs.
Woo. Oh, that's the team of half of the, yeah.
We impregnated this human. We lay beside them in bed. Our tentacle wandered.
Somewhere. Best not to dwell on that thought.
I think that's what he's trying to tell us, like what the reptilian came. Reptilian conquered.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say? Or what was I going to say? It doesn't matter. I've forgotten what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Oh, shit. Right, next slide, mate.
Okay. Okay. All right, yeah. The image there on the right is from an episode, The Outer Limits, called The Dead Man's Switch.
What we're looking at here, is that something hanging on the...
Yeah, that's that's like a reptilian being hanging on a guy's back, sucking all the life energy out of him. And notice that all the insects or the reptilians have taken over the office. Yeah, is that
what's on the desk and on the screen and stuff like that?
Yeah, these kind of parasites.
They look really realistic.
But it's worth checking that episode out. Dead Man's Switch is called, and The Outer Limits. But anyway, last one. On you go.
If it was the first contact with a human, reptilians inserted a permanent tap, used during future encounters, minimizing irritation to the body organs. Contact was periodic and by the same reptilian during the course of that human's life. The exchange of bodily fluids was beneficial to both humans and reptilians. Humans of man had a unique relationship with reptilians that did not translate to similar encounters with the other types of reptilian dealings, occurring with Martians and modern humans. Reptilian beings serve multiple purposes inside of star systems, and some of those purposes benefit different non-reptilian race of beings, and therefore are tolerated by the gods. When a purpose is deemed dubious, the gods dispatch serpents to determine the type and race of the reptilian in question and deal with them. Many reptilians are allowed limited technology, enough to carry our specific assigned duties on lower planets by the gods.
Yep. And the image that I chose on the right there, one of them was a gargoyle. You notice, by the way, you go in any major city, you find gargoyles all over the damn place. Not just in New York, but in Paris. In fact, that image in the slide was from Paris. And the image down on the lower right-hand side was from a movie called The Island. And that was a very interesting movie all about cloning. I don't know if you've seen the movie. Have you ever seen it, The Island?
Yep, Scarlett Johansson, Ewan McGregor.
Yep, the idea that the wealthy, they would get these clones and they didn't know about them, and whenever anything went wrong with the rich, they would just take the organs out of the clones. It was all illegal. I'm spoiling it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but a very good movie. Interesting watch if you ever get the chance to see it. But yeah, the whole idea that the kind of reptilians were, dependent on us, kind of thing. It's quite an interesting theory. That'll be expanded more when I go into future presentations.
I didn't know there
We're
was
only
a
halfway along.
difference between the reptilians and serpents.
Yeah, big difference actually. Yeah.
Is the alligator people coming next, or
No, that was the last slide. But like the reptilians are like the less evolved serpents. I think the serpents are like the ones who are really running the whole show. But it's interesting, isn't it? Matthew 10:16.
so? Who's the gods? Who's the gods? Who's that popped up at the end? The gods. Mentioned the gods a couple of times there.
Yeah, like
how are they involved with the Martians, the reptiles, the snakes,
they're
the space
like
Vikings, the space wizards?
They're the overseers, the ones who run the show, like the Greek pantheon, for example, like with Apollo and Hermes and Jehovah and all the rest of it, and Zeus and all this. They're kind of like a level above humans, but they're like lower than serpents. So that seems to be where their place is on the hierarchy. They've got human characteristics, but they're more powerful than humans. I think that's essentially it. And they're the ones who run everything on the kind of local level, and then you've kind of like got the overseers, who are the serpents, who run whole systems. That's the idea behind it. But yeah, I mean, like I say, whenever you read this stuff, you just think of all the genres of sci-fi that talk about these very things or show you these very things. Red Dwarf, Warhammer, Star Trek, maybe even Star Wars up to a point. Palpatine looks like a reptilian, doesn't he? He's got yellow eyes. When you turn to the dark side, you get yellow eyes, and it looks like a kind of fiend or a demon or some kind of demonic reptilian type entity kind of thing. But
because most of these stories are inspired by other stories, so you'll find that there's similarities running through. You'll find a running theme going through a lot of them that you're like, holy shit, I've heard this before, because you have heard it before. I mean,
yeah, I suppose so.
But that doesn't mean it's fucking true just because you've heard it before. Like I said, like there's only so many times you can tell a story before it comes full circle again, and you're telling the same story again. Like, I don't know, mate. I can't fucking believe any of that. Like I said, if the guy's telling us a sci-fi story like Star Trek, I'm into my sci-fi, man. I like to think outside the box with stuff when it comes to entertaining myself. but it doesn't mean I'm going to hold that as a belief. I mean, it's like there's a difference. There's a difference in my head between entertainment and believing something's true, or close to believing something's true. You'll never prove something 100% apart from something like objectively, apart from something like the sun coming up every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I said, it's entertaining, mate. Like I like these stories. I like sci-fi, so it's like I've experimented with these ideas when I was younger as well. Like I said, I'm no a young guy. I'm fucking 41, 2 days. So it's not like I've not heard these stories before and watched movies that were similar, and it's almost like Scientology, to be honest with you. Can the whole idea of Scientology and their religions can like all these Martians were throwing fucking meteorites into mountains and Xanoff or whatever the fuck his name is. But it's like we've heard them all before, man, and it's like I don't know if these guys wrote these stories to start cults or start fucking new movements, new esoteric, new agey movements. Don't know, man.
Yeah, Lou Baldwin, he didn't start a cult out of this. It's quite interesting. I've got a lot of his books over there, but it's mostly about this kind of thing. I think one of the names of his books, you'll probably laugh at this one, The Nymphs of Jupiter was the name of one of his books, I think. Orphans of Aquarius, about the Vietnam War. There's other ones as well. Mars and the Lost Planet Man, I've, edited a lot out there, obviously. But I'll return to that in the future when it comes to Planet Man, which is the planet between Jupiter and Mars, which I do believe did exist. Do I believe any of this? Well, the thing is, this is, like I say, a bridge episode between the first four, Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth, and the last four. So, when you see them all put together, when all the dots are joined, then this forms a part of the puzzle. But it's kind of like a bridging between the two, between like Brinsley, Lapointe, Trench mostly, and David Icke mostly. So it will make more sense in the wider context when it's all put together, maybe. For folk, or maybe not, but it's just putting the information out there and seeing what people think. I mean, there will be people who will come down on your side and say this is a lot of bullshit, and maybe there'll be one or two that come down on my side and say, well, that actually fits a piece of the puzzle. In the end, I'm
No,
just trying to connect the
me. I
dots.
got an email. I got an email from someone who's seen our last show,
Yeah.
and it says, "Sorry, Jed, I didn't want to be horrible or that, but I played with that idea as well, the Mars stuff." I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, no, you as well. Oh my God.
The way I see it, I'm just throwing darts at the board and seeing what sticks. This is not my theory. It's not my ideas. I'm just thinking that if you put it into the context of the bigger picture, it might have a place in the puzzle. That's all. It might be a part of the jigsaw. But I know that you don't believe in any of this stuff, so thanks for coming on. And I hope you were never too bored by any of this stuff, because I
No,
know that you're not really
like
into
I
it.
said, mate, I find it entertaining. I like to think and I like to use my imagination. And kind of like when we use these, when we read these paragraphs, these space Vikings, that they always conjure visions in my mind that are quite entertaining. So like I didn't mind playing with these ideas, but to know where we came from, our humans. I like to stay more on the Earth. The ideas that we did breed with Neanderthals. There were other humans that stayed behind and never bred with the Neanderthals, and then suddenly there's conflicts between the two, and there's tribes, and there's civilizations, technologies, all this stuff. I do like it, the languages and the myths and the cultures that come along with these tribes and clans, and I love all that shit, man. I do, but when you start, I think I think people find it boring. A lot of people find all that stuff boring. So what other people do is make these stories into rather than clans on the earth, they make it instead of the Romans and the fucking Germans or whatever. It's the Martians and the serpents. It's to maybe drag people into something there maybe is some truth, and there's maybe some history there that it's based on. Can maybe the Martians are based on the Romans or kind of whoever. I don't know. Behind every story, there is that kind of stories are inspired by other stories, so
Sure.
there's maybe some truth in there somewhere, mate. There's maybe a wee nugget. There's maybe a wee nugget in there somewhere. You never know,
Maybe.
mate. I'm not saying there's no. There might be a
Yeah.
nice, solid bit of truth in there somewhere, but I really do need to see some evidence for it.
Well, just for folk who are watching this, for the audience watching this, this is, like I say, it's only a piece of the puzzle, and it's just connecting between the two sides. I hope that's the intention behind it, and I think when you see them all, well, maybe not yourself necessarily, Jay, because I don't know really how interested you are in any of this. I don't think you really are, but when the folk who are watching this see all of the 8 parts, and you put it all together, when you join the dots, like David Icke likes to say, maybe in that context it will make a lot more sense, but maybe not. This is not really meant as a standalone presentation. It's part of a larger picture. So, when it all gets put together in the end, maybe there is a place for all this, or, who knows.
It's
But
good. It's good to get it out there, man, and get people
yeah,
thinking. I mean, it's always good to think. It's always good to think
yeah,
outside the box. If anything, it's an experiment to make you think. And could we be from another place? And
yeah.
but use your brain. Didn't be too open minded where your brain falls out. I mean, you can still think. You still think outside the box, but then start
uh,
thinking logic and reasoning and evidence
yeah.
and
Yeah,
the
there's a difference. Yeah.
scientific methods and
Well,
apply these sort of things.
when it comes to Mars, I will get to that in the future. I definitely will, because I've got loads of books on it. I've got like a dozen books, and it's all full of stuff about Cydonia and the face on Mars and the pyramids on Mars and all this. A lot of it is science. A lot of it is scientifically proven. So when I'm putting all this out there, if you just see this and nothing else, you think this all sounds nuts. But then, like I always say, you have to join the dots. And I will get to Mars later on. It won't be immediate because I've still got the other 4 presentations to put up first to
Later on, that's all we've heard,
carry
man,
out
is Mars.
Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth. Yeah, but we get the whole thing out, but that will be in the future. And I've got a couple of days off coming up, actually. I think I'm off for the next 4 days after this. So I'll have plenty of time to put up the other episodes. And I'm working on Odin's Thunder. That reminds me, I almost forgot completely about that. See, when I get to that one, I think you'll be a lot more interested in that, because then we're going
Well,
back to Commons Beaumont, going back to Britain, the Key to World History, which you covered
well,
excellently years
I
ago.
will. I'll be more
Uh,
interested. I'll probably put
yeah,
more of a intellectual
yeah.
discussion about stuff like that. But I find it hard to take myself seriously listening to this kind of stuff. It's like,
Well, you know,
ah,
that's fair enough. I mean, I wanted your opinion. I asked for your opinion, and you gave me your opinion.
I'm
So
not. I
that's
hope I'm
fine
not
by
being
me.
too harsh, man. I hope I'm not being
No,
too
not at
harsh.
all.
I think, like I said, man, it's entertaining. And if this guy's telling, it's a good story and all that. Kind of, I'm into my Star Trek. I'm into the Borg. I'm into the Klingons and shit like that, man. I like how there's different languages and they've got their different cultures and one's trying to conquer the other. And I like all that stuff, man. But if that's what you're presenting, if it's just presented as entertainment, and fair enough, I'm into it. But
Sure.
if this guy's trying to tell me this is where we came from,
Hmm.
this is this nah,
You're going to
nah,
need a
mate,
lot more
nah,
evidence. You're
mate.
going to need a lot more
Aye,
proof
aye,
than this.
aye, mate.
Yeah,
But like I said,
absolutely.
I didn't shy away from thinking about the idea. You know what I mean? But the thing
Yeah,
is, I thought about it before. I thought about it
yeah,
before. I've sat there 10 years ago thinking about Orkin, the Anunnaki, can were we even Stargate and films like Stargate and that. You're thinking again, were we kind of like were the Egyptians like aliens and we were like slaves to these aliens and kind of things like that. Yeah, and they had higher technology than us and stuff like that. But
sure.
I dabbled with the ideas, man. I did. I really did. I think that maybe you're just a late sort of. Have you ever looked into this stuff before, like
No,
over the years? No.
no.
So maybe it's just you're in this phase now. Um, I think people that look for alternative history and alternative theories will go down these roads. They will. They have to, because you find when you're reading different authors, different ideas, and you're like, oh, what's that? And you go down different roads of research, but like I said, that you can form your own conclusions at the end of the day. I'm not telling you how to think, mate.
No.
You're well within your rights. If you think it feels right and you think that these stories are ring true with you, and if, like I said, if you're willing to believe it without any evidence, it's starting to become a religion, mate.
Oh, yeah, that's the trouble, isn't it? That's the trap. It's the difference between being open-minded and being gullible. You know,
Mm,
being naive.
mm-hmm.
Is it? Are you trying to believe this because you are looking for something to cling to, something to believe in? But like I said before, one of the best things about me and one of the worst is that I'm endlessly curious. I never stop thinking, and I never settle into any pattern of thinking for very long. I'm always moving forward. I never stay in a set pattern for a protracted amount of time. It's just something I've noticed. It's a pattern with me. I'm always thinking away. Um,
It's
but
good. Like I said, it's
yeah,
good to think, man. It's not bad. At least you're not sitting there just thinking about football or fucking. You know what I mean? It's good to think about
yeah,
these ideas because you can apply them to like history. Okay, like all that stuff could be like metaphors for Romans and Germanics and Celts and all these different tribes conquering other tribes with different technologies and different ways of life, different
yeah,
bloodlines, and
yeah.
so like I said, man, it's not bad. It's not bad to look into it, and and I'm no rubbish in it either. It's just my personal opinion,
That's
and
fine.
I've dabbled with again. Maybe I've not read that particular story, but like we were
Sure.
speaking about earlier with Star Trek, and can you think about these things, kind of other races, can what if there was other, and
Sure.
it's cool, man. It's cool to think that maybe there might be, but the older I get,
Yeah.
the less and less I tend to believe that there is things out there and we are. And see, by thinking that we are the only things here, it makes us more important. You know what I mean? It does as a human race, not individually, but
Yeah.
as a human race, we should be looking out for each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna head to bed because I'm up at 5 in the
No
morning.
problem, mate. Aye,
Once
well, I'm
again,
away for a drive for 3 hours to Iona.
I was about to say happy birthday, mate, when it comes on the 25th of
Cheers, man.
November. I can't. I couldn't remember where I heard that. I must have watched one of your videos years ago and picked that up. But somehow I just knew it was the 25th of November. But anyway,
It's usually
enjoy your time in
Thanksgiving Day.
Iona.
It's usually
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Aye.
Cool. Well, it's a good choice going up to Iona. I remember I was there years ago. I loved it up there. Um, but yeah, enjoy
I'll be taking
your
plenty
wee
of
trip.
video and I might do a couple of live streams in my wee pod and stuff like that.
Sure.
So
No
you'll get a
bother,
wee
mate.
glimpse of it anyway, man, if you check my channel.
Of course, everybody out there, check out Jed's channel. I'll link it in the description below. And I'm going to head to bed.
It's better than his channel, by the way. I didn't talk
Oh,
about
well, there you
Mars
go.
and that.
Well, mine's is a work in progress. What can I tell you? I've not been at the game as long as you have.
Nah,
But
you're doing well, man. You're doing well. You've got over
thanks.
800 now, so you're catching
Yeah,
up, mate. You're catching up.
I never thought I'd get up to 800 in the first place. So there we go. Can't wait to get to 1,000 if that ever happens.
It's a
But
miracle, mate.
all right,
Right.
take care, buddy.
Have a
Cheers.
good one. See you later.
You too, mate. Cheers.